let's see what is agile model all about. So agile is a model, or you can say agile is a methodology that promotes continuous iteration of development and testing throughout the software development life cycle of the projects. So in agile model, we can say it is a continuous working of functionalities. So where you can implement your changes in the current cycle also. In traditional, where we have waterfall model and other models in which we cannot take the changes in the middle of the cycle or in the middle of testing, but in agile model we can take changes or we can take new requirement or any point of time in the development phase or in the testing phase. So that's why we say that agile is a model or methodology where we can take the continuous iteration of development as well as testing both, and also both development and testing activities are concurrent unlike the waterfall model. So here in this, the development and testing both are linked with each other. So once any particular functionality is taken into middle of the cycle and developers has developed that, then tester has to test that particular user story or that particular functionality in that sprint only. So this is a concurrent functionality or concurrent feature, unlike the waterfall model where we cannot take the changes in the current running cycle. So what all are the principles of agile model? So let's see, I have taken 5 principles over here. It could be 10 or 15, but I'm taking here only top 5 principles of agile model. So if any interviewer asks you about the model for the agile and their principle, then you can discuss them with these particular principles as you are seeing on your screen. So these are the principles of agile model. So let's start with the first principle. It always welcomes changing requirements. So it always takes the new requirement, even later stage in the development. Agile process harness changes for the customer competitive advantage. So it's give the advantage to the customer that they can ask for the new change in the running cycle or the current sprint, and it gives the flexibility to update the requirement at any point of time. Then our highest priority is to satisfy the customer through early and continuous delivery of the valuable software. So the principle of agile says that our highest priority is to satisfy the customer, and how they can be satisfied by the delivery of valuable software. If they satisfy with the software, then it is our highest principle of this model. Then the third one, working software is the primary measure of progress. So it says that the working software, it means the expected functionality is working for the client. So it says whatever you have developed in the sprint or the cycle, that should be the working software, and client can take that particular functionality to the production. So the working software is the primary clause over here, that it should be workable for the client. Then delivery of working software frequently. So our principle is to deliver the working software in every sprint. So that is our principle, and from a couple of weeks to the couple of months. So whatever is the our cycle, let's say 15-day cycle, 1 month cycle, so we should deliver the working software within a preference to the shorter time scale. So let's say in a current cycle, our client asked to change some functionality or to update new functionality with the older one, then we should take that and we should implement that functionality in the current sprint only. Then the last principle, build project around motivated individuals. Give them the environment and support they need and trust them to get the job done. And we should follow these principles while doing our work in agile model. See what all are the role of a software tester in agile model. So the role of a QA in agile environment goes beyond just testing and logging defects. So in agile model, the tester task is not only testing and just logging defect against the incorrect functionalities. It is more working as a part of development team. So in agile model, software testers are also working very closely with the development team and working closely with the product owner as well. So it is the responsibility of the software tester to get the correct requirement from the product owner, and it is software testers responsibility that they should work very closely with the development team as well as product owner to get the correct requirement and to get the correct functionality that should be implemented for the client. The tester work with the everyone in the team in order to improve and build quality into the product as early as possible. So the tester responsibility is not only testing, but it is also very critical to get the job done as quickly as possible in a correct manner, and they should interact with all the team members, that could be development, BA or product owner, and to gather the correct information from the different teams so that the product is developed in correct manner. So we will see more roles of a software tester in the next slide. So let's see, the first role could be communication. So as I have taken that into last slide, the communication is most important feature of software tester in agile model, where the software tester communicate with different teams. Then technical aspects. So technical aspects is also important so that they can work with the automation team also. So they can automate their project as per the client need. And the automation skill, so it could be any particular automation, it could be any automation skill, that could be Selenium, QTP, SoapUI, or you can say performance testing. So automation skill is also a key role of a software tester in agile. Then what all other roles, like attend sprint planning session, attend daily stand-up calls with the client. So sprint planning, so that they can get the correct picture of the user story that is assigned to them for the testing, and attending the daily stand-up calls so that they should know what is going on in the project. attend sprint retrospective meetings. So what is retrospective? It is something like done after the sprint is completed. So in this meeting, it is discussed like what is not going good in the cycle, what is good in that particular cycle. So it says what went wrong, what is good in the current cycle. So it is the retrospection of the sprint. Then the document test cases. So it is tester's responsibility to document the test cases. Self-organizing. So self-organizing means he should be more capable of handling the different requirements from the business team. Then he should be committed. So the tester should be committed to his or her task. Then the transparent. So tester should be transparent so that he always talk in the meeting, he always speak in the meeting like what is going on and how he is testing, what is going on in the automation. So he should be transparent. Then open to feedback. So if team meeting is going on, then he should give the feedback to the team, like what is going good in the team, what is not going good in the team. So he should be open to the feedback also. So these all are the roles of a software tester in agile model. We will see the role of a QA manager in our upcoming session. We are going to see what all are the roles of test manager in agile model. So we will see these roles one by one. So the first role is building the team. So it is the test manager responsibility to build his or her team for software testing. Then this is test manager's role that he should define the scope of each team member. So which team member do what, it should be decided and the scope is defined by the test manager only. Then deploying and managing resources for testing. So which testing team or which team member should work with which team and how he manage, this is the responsibility of a test manager. So deploying the resources is the key role of test manager. Then applying all the metrics of testing in project. So this is software test manager's responsibility that he should apply different metrics in the team, like defect matrix, requirement traceability matrix. So all these kind of metrics should be implemented in the project and it is the responsibility of test manager. Then being an escalation point of testers. So this is the key point or key role of manager, that if any escalation is happened for the software tester, then he should be the contact point from the tester side. So if any client raise a escalation, so test manager should take that and do the required task or required, and he should take the tester's points and should interact with the business team or any team who has escalated that issue. Then budgeting. So budgeting is the key role of test manager. So he should decide how many team members should be working in the project, because that is related to the budget and it should go to the client also. So budgeting is the key role of test manager. Then the last one, the facilitation of inter-team communication across many agile projects within an organization. So he should aware what is going on in different agile projects in our company and how we can take good points from them and avoid the bad points. So he should be the contact person who is responsible for facilitating the team with the good task or good skills. So these are the key roles of test manager in agile model. We are going to see what all are the differences between our traditional model and the agile model. So let's start with the differences in these two models. In our traditional model, requirements are clear at the inception of the project. It means that when you are going to start your project, you are aware of the requirement. But in agile model, requirements are not clear because when you started working on, there might be some changes in the requirement. So you don't have any clear vision about the requirement. It is decided at the runtime when you start working on the sprint or on that particular requirement. And also in the traditional model, we have limited communication. Like you don't communicate very frequently with the client or with the management. But in agile model, we have more communication between our different stakeholders. It could be client, manager, test manager, or other team member. In our traditional model, we have already elaborated process that need to be followed in the same manner. But in agile, we have limited process. The fourth difference could be in between agile and traditional is the time consuming as they develop the complete product in a single cycle. So your cycle could be more time taking because it is started from the requirement gathering till the testing completes. So your testing and your development take more time because it is started from the requirement phase. But in agile model, it is an iterative model that allows to develop easy in a short span of time because we have 15 days cycle. So let's say our sprint is 15 days. So in that 15-day cycle, you have to develop your requirement and you have to test that also. In traditional model, we don't have any scrum call or standard call, but in agile, we have scrum call, where we discuss what we have done yesterday, what we are doing today, and if we have any challenges. In traditional, no flexibility to change the requirement because the requirements are gathered at the starting of the project, so you cannot change the requirement very frequently. So there is no flexibility. But in agile, we are more flexible to change the requirement or any stage. Like we can change the requirement in between the sprint, before the sprint, at any time. The traditional model is time consuming to understand, develop, test and defect fixing. But in agile, it saves a lot of time due to frequent communication between our different stakeholders, where we communicate our client directly what is working on, where is the defect, and how much time we take to fix those. Then in traditional model, testing happens only after the completion of development. So it is at the last stage because once the complete software is developed, then only we start our testing. So it takes a lot of time to reach the testing cycle. But in agile model, testing team works in parallel with the development team. Like what they are working on, we are simultaneously started working on our test cases, scenarios writing, automation script. So we are working on the same requirement which the development team is developing. And at the last, automation is not useful practice because in traditional model, you can only automate your project once the complete software development and the testing completes. But in traditional model, it was not available. Here in the agile model, we have the continuous automated testing which ensures better quality. So in agile, it is possible that you can automate your requirement parallelly while development team is developing the software. So these are the few differences, or you can say few comparisons between agile and traditional model. So we should be knowing these differences so that we can tell these things in the interview or to our management what all are the differences and how we need to interact with them. We are going to see who all are involved in agile team and what all are the agile events. So let's go through this diagram. In this we have all the stakeholders that are available in our agile team. So let's start with the product owner. Here we have the product owner who is our end client for whom we are working to create some project. So he is our product owner. He has all the requirements what he wanted us to develop. Then we have developers who are going to develop that software. Then we have the testers who all are going to test these software. Then the business analyst, the BA. Then we have the scrum master who is going to guide through this cycle and he will look after what is going on in this particular sprint and he will see who is working on what piece of code. Then we have the build engineer who will be responsible to create the build. Then we have the architect also. The architect would be responsible to see what all new things we can implement in our project and what challenges we are going to see in this project. So architect would be available to enhance our project requirement, or you can say he is available to guide us the new things what we can implement in our project to give good coverage in our project to the end client. So we have these many stakeholders which we called as the agile team. Then let's move to our events. So what all events are available in agile model? The model implements with the sprint planning. So in the sprint planning, we plan for our current cycle. Let's say our sprint is 15 days. So in the sprint planning meeting, we take what all things we are going to take in this particular cycle, what we will develop and what we will test and deliver to the end client. Then we have the daily scrum. The second phase is daily scrum. This is our 15-minute scrum meeting, you can say, where we discuss who is working on what and what he have worked in our. He will also tell what he has done in the last day and what he is doing in current day and what challenges he is facing if there is any. So daily scrum meeting is involved, like each team member will discuss what he is working on. Then we have the sprint review meeting. It will take up as like what we have done and what challenges we have faced. So it is kind of review the sprint cycle. The next event is sprint retrospective. So in sprint retrospective meeting, we will see what challenges we have faced what we can do better in our next cycle, what kind of improvements we can do. So we retrospective all our working in our this particular meeting. Then we have the sprint meeting. Like in the sprint meeting, we see what we have done in the current sprint and what we are going to take in our next sprint. So these all are the agile events which we are following in our agile model. We are going to see how we can implement a test strategy in agile model. So let's see in this diagram what all are the activities that are performed by QA. So here I have mentioned we can start our QA activities when we start our planning meeting. So test strategies start from the beginning itself, from the release 1, and it goes on to release 2, release 3 and furthermore. But before starting the release 1, we have the release plan in which we have sprint 0 where we document and start our activities like requirement gathering or infrastructure preparation. So in the release plan, we have a sprint 0, then we have a sprint 1, sprint 2, sprint 3 and so on. And inside that sprint, we have different tasks. So in this sprint, we say that task 1 will take 8 hours, task B will take 5 hours, task C will take 12 hours and task D will take 8 hours. So in this diagram we have seen we have the release. Inside that release we have a sprint and within this sprint we define different tasks. So release planning create a test plan. It is a high level test planning or budgeting enough time. So in the release planning we take care all the high level planning meetings, and if we have the enough budget for this particular release or this particular product, you can say we participate in story sizing because in agile model we work on sprint model. So inside that sprint we have user stories. So in the planning meeting we participate and give some points to stories, to the user stories. So it means in the release planning we have the story sizing also. We can say that in a test strategy we have several test plans, that is scope of testing, new functionalities which are being tested, types, level of testing based on complexity of the feature, performing and load testing, like different you can say performance testing and load testing. Then we have infrastructure consideration like the test environment or software. It means what we need for our different environment, let's say testing environment. Then the risk and mitigation plans, like if any issue occurs then how we can mitigate with that. Then resourcing, it means how many members will work on these things. Then we have the milestone and deliverables, like on which date we will deliver what. So we decide all the things in our release planning. Let's move further. So inside that test strategy, after the release planning we have a sprint. So in our sprint we have a sprint planning meeting, like what we will cover in a sprint could be 15-day cycle or maybe 3 weeks. And inside that we estimate our task. We write our test cases, like high level test cases before coding begins and detailed test cases written during coding, you can say, phase. Then we have the unit and integration test. That is mainly when developer give you some code that is a particular unit, or you can say particular module, then you have something to test, then you test that, or you can automate also that. And if any bug is there, then the bug fixed immediately. Then the pair of tests, dev and QA, what dev has written and what QA has written. So testing pairs, like you test with the development, you test with your developer. Then feature test, perform when a feature is finished their development by the developer, then you start testing a particular functionality. If any particular defect found, then it is fixed immediately. Then we have the reviews, stories, requirement document, test cases, customer, programmer. So we have a review session also. So each sprint will take these all points from participation of sprint planning till the review. We have all the things covered in a sprint planning. Then we have a release. The final stage of a sprint is release. The first one was release planning, then sprint planning, then finally we have release. So in this we define the exit criteria. So how we will see that we are coming out of that sprint? We will make sure that our testing activities are done or completed, like bug severity, open bugs, coverage label, matrix. So all the documents, all the defects are completed. Then we say that we met our exit criteria. Then we have the product artifacts, like different document here we can see. User guide, installation, requirement document, functional document, performance document. So all the documents are at one place so that everyone can see which all functionalities has been covered in that sprint. Then finally we participate in the retrospective. So what is retrospective? In this we analyze what went wrong, what went good, and how we can improve. So it start, stop, and continue. So this is how the test strategy goes in our agile model. So it starts from the release planning, then we have sprint, and finally release. And at last we have a retrospective also. So in this session we have seen how we follow a test strategy in agile model. We are going to see what contents we will cover in agile planning. So in agile planning model, we define the scope for the testing, or we can say we define the scope for development also. Then we define a test strategy, like what test strategy we will follow in our test planning. So in a scope, we see what we will cover in this particular testing. The agile model gives you the flexibility to update or change your requirements. So that's why we have a third point, that be prepared to be rescope our requirement. Then new functionalities which are being tested. So in a planning, we define what all are the new functionalities that need to be tested. Then the level or type of testing based on the feature complexity. In label and type of testing, we define what level of testing we will cover and what type, like sanity, smoke, regression, performance. So which all kind of testing we will perform in this particular project, you can see. Then the load and performance testing, like how and by which tool we will perform our performance testing. Then have an open and continuous feedback. So in a agile we will see what is open and continuous feedback. Like in every sprint we have the retrospective. From there we get our open feedback. So that is why we say that in agile planning we define that we should have open and continuous feedback according to the sprint. Then the infrastructure consideration. So how we create our, so in a infrastructure consideration we define like how many infrastructure we will create. Like we have different infrastructure like silver environment, gold environment, platinum environment, that we say that it is for the development, this is for the testing, this is for the production. So we have different infrastructure. Then mitigation and risk plan. So in a mitigation and risk plan we see if any issue occurred, like or any network failure, any person resigned from the project, so how we will complete our project. So how we will mitigate these situations. So how we will mitigate these situations. Then resourcing. Resourcing is the part like how many candidates or how many users we need for development and how many users we need for our testing. Then we have deliverables and milestones. In our planning we define like which all document we will deliver and when we will deliver. So deliverables could be your test cases, defect matrix, your documents, and the milestones are your different dates, like when you give what functionality to the production. So these are the planning attributes in our agile model. We are going to see what is product backlog and what is sprint backlog. So product backlog is a repository where all the requirements are tracked. Like it has all the complete project requirement in a sprint user story wise. So it is a place where all the user stories are kept with all the requirements that will complete in each phase, or you can say each release. So product backlog is a complete project requirement, you can understand. Then we have a sprint backlog. So sprint backlog is derived from the product backlog. Like in product backlog we have all the user stories. In sprint backlog we take our requirement from the product backlog, what we are going to cover in current sprint. So the sprint backlog is a list of tasks identified by the Scrum team to be completed during the sprint. So let's say for example we are running in sprint 1. So what user stories or what requirement we are going to complete. So those requirements that will take in a current sprint is our sprint backlog. So during the sprint planning meeting, the team select some user stories from product backlog, usually in the forms of user stories, and identify the task necessary to complete each user story. So in a sprint backlog the team takes the user story from the product backlog, then they create certain tasks in those particular user stories, like what they will do in that particular user story. So that they create task and subtask. Let's move further. So what is the process that we follow in our Scrum testing? So in Scrum testing, we have iteration, like each iteration of a Scrum that we call it as a sprint. So the first thing, each iteration of a Scrum is our sprint. Then the second, that is our product backlog. So product backlog is a list where all the details are entered to get our end product. So once we will complete all our product backlog user story, then we have one product available. Then during each sprint, top items of product backlog, because that we take from the priority wise, are selected and turned into our sprint backlog. So in product backlog, we are kept our user stories as per the priority wise, and from that particular priority and from that priority we pick our user stories from that particular sprint, that we called it as our sprint backlog. Then the fourth item, the team works on the defined sprint backlog. So here we say that our team will work only on those user stories that are assigned in our current sprint. We will not take items from outside. We can take from certain point of time, but it will impact our sprint also. Then team checks for the daily work. So how team checks with the daily work? That team checks in our Scrum meeting that we execute every morning, like what each team member is doing with their user story, with their task. So that's where team checks for our daily work. And at the end of the sprint, team delivers product functionality. So after each sprint, team delivers certain functionality that has been successfully developed and tested. So this is how our Scrum testing follows. So here we have covered product backlog that has certain user stories. User stories are nothing but a certain functionality, and those functionality we take into our sprint for current implementation, that we called it as our sprint backlog. And from there we start our development and testing. After that we say that our functionality is successfully completed and we deliver those functionality to our product owner. So in this session we have seen what is product backlog, what is sprint backlog, and how we work in our Scrum testing. We are going to see which all are the necessary items which we cover in our agile testing. So as you see in this diagram, the first phase is sprint planning. So in the sprint planning, we have the product backlog. We will see product backlog in detail, and we have team structure and capabilities. We have the business conditions. So this is our requirement document, we can say, in a traditional ways, if we can say. Like in our traditional ways, we have requirement document, business requirement document, functional requirement document. But here we have product backlog, we have team structure and capabilities, and we have business conditions. So business conditions are nothing but the requirement document. Then we have sprint. So sprint, you can say it is a time period in which we have to deliver certain functionalities. Sprint could be 2 weeks, 3 weeks or 4 weeks max. So in the sprint, we have sprint backlog, like which all functionalities we are going to cover in the current sprint that we talk in sprint backlog. Then we have a sprint burn down chart. So what is burn down chart? Like what all functionalities we have covered, whatever we have decided, and what we are not able to cover. So it is completely displayed in the sprint burn down chart. Then we have a 30 days plan, like what could be our next 30 days sprint items, you can see. Then we have daily scrum meet. In the daily scrum meet, we have daily 15-minute status meeting, like every team member gives their status, like what he has done yesterday, what he is doing today, and if he is facing or she is facing any challenges. Then we have task discussion and impediments. So in the scrum meet, we discuss if we are facing any challenges, any issues in the team, any environmental issues. So anything we discuss in our scrum meeting regarding our project. Then we have a decision making. So decision making is nothing but like our managers, like who takes the decision, like who will do what. And then we have a sprint review meeting. That is a review meeting of a task for a particular sprint, and then informal setup as and when required. So it is like if we need any meeting for the particular sprint, then we can conduct. So that is why it is mentioned if and when it is required, then only you can take this meeting. And at the last, we have sprint retrospective. So what is retrospective? This is a process improvement, Scrum Master's responsibility, and prioritize on the task and decisions. So process improvement means what went well, what went wrong, and how we can improve our sprint. So this is discussed in our sprint retrospective meeting, and we decide like if Scrum Masters follow their responsibility successfully, or he also need any improvement in their working behavior, you can say. So this is a diagram which we will follow in our agile model. So let's move further. So what is Scrum? The first thing arise, what is Scrum? Like in agile, we talked about sprint planning, but in general, we say that we follow Scrum. So what is Scrum? Scrum is an agile development method which concentrates specifically on how to manage tasks within a team-based development environment. Like we decide who will do what task and in a certain period of time. So that's why it is called as a Scrum. So Scrum, if we say as a history, it came from a rugby match. Like Scrum believes in empowering the development team and advocate working in small teams like 7 to 9 members. So 7 to 9 members means if we have 3 developers or 4 developers, 2 testers, then we have a Scrum manager, we have a product owner. So that's we include as a team. So that's why we called it as a Scrum team. Then it consists 3 roles. Basically in a Scrum meeting, or you can say in Scrum environment, we have three roles. The first one is Scrum Master. So Scrum Master is responsible for setting up team sprint meeting, or you can say remove obstacle. If you are facing any issue, he is responsible to tackle with that, and he supposed to remove that tackle. So Scrum Master role is work as a facilitator. Then we have Product Owner. So who is Product Owner? So product owner create product backlog, prioritize the backlog, and he is responsible for delivering the functionality at each iteration. Like product owner decide what functionality you will take in current sprint. He supposed to prioritize the work and give to the current sprint. Then we have Scrum team. So what is Scrum team? Scrum team basically, you can say, a combination of development team, testing team, business team, DBA, or our Scrum Masters itself. So Scrum team manages its work and organize the work to complete the sprint or cycle. So the Scrum team is responsible to complete the work that is given for a particular sprint. So in our agile model, we have Scrum Master, Product Owner, and Scrum team. So these are the three major roles, or you can say major criteria to create a team that follow the agile model. In further videos, we will cover what is product backlog and what is sprint backlog. We are going to see how many